It started as a joke, at least that's what she called it. We were getting ready for a friend's anniversary dinner, and she stood in front of the mirror, slipping into a black dress that made every head turn. I told her she looked stunning. She laughed, brushing off the compliment like she always did now. "Careful," she said with a smirk, fastening her earrings. "Maybe I'll find 2 men half your age tonight." She said it playfully, but the words hit like a quiet slap. I smiled anyway, the kind of smile men wear when they've learned not to start fights that end nowhere. "Maybe you will," I replied, tying my tie. "Just make sure they can afford dinner." She rolled her eyes. "Oh, please don't be dramatic. We used to tease each other and laugh. Lately, though, every joke had a sharp edge, like she was testing how much I could take before breaking. For months she'd been different. Always glued to her phone, always busy. I wasn't the jealous type, but when someone you love stops looking at you the same way, you feel it like a slow, invisible bruise. At dinner, she was the life of the party. Laughing, touching arms, soaking up attention. I sat there, half listening to conversations, half watching her perform. When her friend jokingly asked where she found the energy, she winked and said, "Must be all the young blood around me lately." The table erupted in laughter. I didn't say a word. Just smiled, finished my drink, and decided something right then. If she wanted to play with pride, I'd show her what happens when a man finally stops chasing approval. The next morning I booked something special. A private weekend retreat. But not for her. For me. I'd spent too long proving I could be the good husband, the patient one, the man who forgave too much. Now, I wanted to remind myself who I was before her jokes became weapons. When I told her I'd be gone that weekend, she frowned. "Where are you going?" "Somewhere I don't have to be the punchline," I said quietly. She laughed, but not as confidently this time. Her words hung in the air like smoke, light, teasing but poisonous underneath. "Maybe I'll find 2 men half your age tonight," she'd said, laughing as she adjusted her dress in front of the mirror. It was supposed to be a joke, or at least that's how she framed it when I didn't laugh. She was heading out with her friends from work. A group I never really trusted. They drank too much, flirted too freely, and always came home too late. Still, I smiled, said, "Have fun," and went back to my book. But something inside me shifted that night. Not because I thought she meant it literally, but because she could say it at all. That kind of comment doesn't come from nowhere. It grows out of neglect, of distance, of someone testing how much they can wound you and still get away with it. When the door shut behind her, the silence in the house felt heavy. I sat there thinking about all the times I'd let her jokes slide. All the times I'd laughed off her flirting with strangers at parties, her subtle jabs about me getting older, working too much, being too serious. I realized I'd been shrinking in my own marriage, shrinking to make her feel bigger, funnier, more desired. That night, I decided I was done playing the quiet husband who just took it. So I made a plan. Not out of revenge, but out of self-respect. I started packing, not my bags but my priorities. I called an old friend who ran a cabin rental 2 hours away. Booked it for the weekend. Then I texted my wife, "Don't wait up tonight. I'll be gone before you're back." No anger. No drama. Just the truth. She didn't respond. When she stumbled in around 2 a.m., she called my name, half drunk, half curious. But the house was dark, my side of the bed empty, my closet half cleared. On the kitchen counter, I'd left her a note. "You joked about finding 2 men half my age. I hope they make you laugh the way I used to." The next morning, my phone buzzed nonstop. Messages, missed calls, voice notes. Each one a little more desperate. The laughter in her tone was gone, replaced by panic. Maybe it finally hit her that love isn't something you mock. It's something you respect or you lose it. When she finally showed up at the cabin 3 days later, she looked nothing like the confident woman who'd left for that girls' night. Her eyes were swollen, her hair a mess, and her voice cracked when she said my name. I was sitting on the porch, coffee in hand, watching the morning fog roll off the lake. She stood there in silence for a long time, clutching the note I'd left behind as if it were the last piece of me she could hold on to. "I didn't mean it," she said finally. "It was just a joke." I looked at her and smiled, not out of bitterness but out of clarity. "That's the problem," I said softly. "You stopped meaning the things that mattered, and started joking about the ones that did." She sat down across from me, her voice trembling as she talked about the emptiness of that night. How she'd laughed with her friends, flirted for attention she didn't even want, and realized halfway through that none of it made her feel alive, just hollow. When she came home and saw my things gone, she said it felt like the air had been sucked out of her chest. She'd waited for me to call, to fight, to come back. But I didn't. And that silence, she said, was louder than any argument we'd ever had. For the first time in years, I let her talk without interrupting. And for the first time in years, she listened when I spoke. I told her how her constant teasing, her little jokes, had chipped away at me slowly. How every time she compared me to someone younger or more exciting, it wasn't just words. It was a reminder that she'd stopped seeing my worth. She cried then, not the loud, dramatic kind, but the quiet tears that come when the truth finally lands. "I thought you'd always be there," she whispered. "I thought no matter what I said, you'd never leave." I stood up, placed my empty mug on the railing and said, "That's exactly why I had to." As I walked past her, she reached for my hand, but I didn't stop. I wasn't walking away out of anger anymore. I was walking away because I'd already done the hardest part, realizing my peace mattered too. And as I drove down that long gravel road, her reflection in the mirror grew smaller, until it finally disappeared, like the echo of a joke that was never funny to begin with.